Welcome to the Speaker Meeting, a space where we break the silence one story at a time. Every episode, you'll hear from someone who's been there, through the struggle of addiction, the turning point into recovery, and the journey after. Because no matter where you are, you're not alone. Recovery is possible, and hope is real. My hope is that by sharing these stories, you'll believe it to be true. My name is Chibi. My sobriety date is April 5th, 2024, and this is the Speaker Meeting.
Well, my name is Jaycee Clark. I am a 35-year-old trans woman. I moved to San Antonio in 2020. And my sobriety date is 5/24/2020.
All right. Right in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
We have a tradition on this podcast where the guest randomly picks a deck, a tarot deck, and then randomly picks a card from that tarot deck. And the one that and we use this as a way to kind of ground the conversation, essentially. And the card that you picked was the Ace of Swords reversed. And this card typically shows up whenever clarity is clouded, right? When truth feels just out of reach or hard to really speak aloud. Mm-hmm. It can represent mental fog, self-doubt, or holding back what needs to be said. And in recovery, it's often a sign that we're wrestling with honesty, right? Especially with ourselves, and that a breakthrough is trying to come through, but something is still standing in the way. And I'm wondering how this card resonates with you in your recovery journey. And has there ever been a time, where you really struggled to speak your truth?
Wow. It couldn't be more spot on. I know that. So tomorrow is like my first day off in a minute. And I don't think I've been brutally honest as to how uncomfortable I am. Just because I live in a community of 40 people who are all in recovery, and I'm around them all the time. And tomorrow's my first day where I get to sit with myself alone. And that's uncomfortable because I haven't done it in several months. Yeah. And so I don't think I've been brutally honest with my sponsor about the shit that's coming up. And then of course, there's some deservability that comes up with that, So it's pretty spot on, but I'm pretty honest in all areas of my program, and with my life. I'm not afraid to talk about shit.
Yeah.
But for this to come up, it's just new and it's uncharted territory for me. And yeah, and I just celebrated 5 years and
congrats.
When I tell you my alcoholic has been pretty loud lately, and I don't think I have vocalized that enough.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that's you battle with ego and being vulnerable with others, for me personally. And it's I struggle with, I gotta appear like I got all my shit together, but at the same time, I have struggled lately.
Yeah. I'm wondering, so you said you've been in this community of 40 people for a while now, right? And, as alcoholics, or at least I can speak for myself, there is so many different ways that I might not be running to the bottle, right? But I'm probably still finding ways to run away from myself, my feelings, my emotions. Has that kind of constant stimuli, constant community, constant being around other people, do you feel like that's a way that you've been masking, really confronting what you're going through?
I think in the last 60 days, I've really just kept myself busy, with doing all the external things. Of course, still talking to my sponsor on a regular basis. I see her every day, but I'm an addict. So I keep myself busy with doing all these things. And it's I'm quick to say yes to shit.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't necessarily say yes all the time. But that's my coping.
Yeah.
It's just not alcohol.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still gives me that kind of buzz,
Yeah, it's a little dopamine rush.
It's a distraction.
It's very much a distraction.
You know? And so, yeah, tomorrow I get to sit with myself. And on one hand, I'm super excited. And on the other hand, I'm super uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well,
and that's okay.
It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about recovery as we dive deeper into it is like we really realize that like we don't have to run away, right? Things can just be what they are.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with running. Like, I mean, but it's like I have choices today and it's like, which way am I going to run? Am I going to run from it or am I going to run toward it?
Yeah.
You know, and I have collected enough evidence in 5 years to know that like if I run towards the uncomfortability, there is a breakthrough on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just like being honest with myself, like, fuck, you know, it's uncomfortable.
And that's very much where the Ace of Swords kind of comes in, where it's like breaking through that fog, right? To get to the other side. You know, the Suit of Swords is a suit about intelligence, right? And that kind of like sharpness, that clarity, right? And it's showing up the way that it has is like, you have that sword ready to slash, right? But there's just something in the way right now.
Yeah, it's me.
It
I'm always
usually
the
is.
problem.
Yeah, it usually
it's me
is.
standing in the way, you know, and it's like, I still think I have good ideas, you know, and I think a lot of us in recovery do, you know, but that's what living in community is like. I'm not doing this alone. Yeah. You know, and so spot on.
Here we are.
We are.
They always have, like literally every conversation that I've had, whoever pulls the card is like, wow, that's
well, shit, here we are.
Resonating.
Yeah.
So, well, then let's take it back, right?
Okay.
And what was your relationship like with addictive substances or addictive behaviors at the beginning, and how did that evolve over time?
So, you know, I started drinking and doing drugs like Adderall, you know, at the age of 15. And it was manageable because I was still going to school, high school, you know, and I was an only child. And so like, I just needed to graduate, you know, so I was able to manage it, you know, like I only did it on the weekends or, you know, but it just got out of control really quick, you know? And then it was just like, it was never enough, you know? And I just kept chasing a high. And I think that's all of us. Yeah. You know? And it just got worse. And then, you know, by the age of like 23, I was living in a tent and I was like, how the fuck did I get here? You know? 23.
Yeah.
In Houston.
How did you get there? You know?
You know,
like you said, you needed to graduate, right? So
yeah, I did that.
Got through school,
I did that.
Graduated.
I was almost late for graduation because I was hungover. And my mom made me stay in a hotel. How did I get there? Oh, let's see. So I started drinking at 15, and I was drinking and doing Adderall and smoking weed. And then by like 17, I was doing cocaine, and I had been introduced to like the gay nightclub scene in Houston. I was hanging out with the wrong people. And then 18, I graduated, and I met this person who introduced me to a lifestyle that was not healthy. And I started escorting. And then this person introduced me to the adult film industry. And I didn't necessarily think it was going to be what it was. But my film career kind of blew up overnight. And I just got so deeply involved in all of the sex industry and like traveling across the country. And like, I've made several nightclub appearances and like, I've been in a lot of studios, you know, and the money was great, you know, because at the same time that I was filming, I was escorting. And when you travel and you escort and your name is on DVDs and all these different websites, like you can charge a little more. Yeah. You know? And so I was making really good money at a young age. And, you know, and then I started webcamming before OnlyFans. And that brought in so much of an income that I quit filming, you know? And webcamming was my only income. Still escorting though. And so I was just like raking in all this money at 23, 21, 22. And then by the age of 23, like I was starting to experiment with heavier drugs. And I had always told myself, like, I'll never be the kind of person that shoots up, you know, because I looked down on those people and I thought that's so trashy. But by 23, I was literally living on the streets of downtown Houston because I had smoked or snorted or drank all of my money and gotten myself evicted. And I just wasn't smart.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anybody to show me, you know, not that that was a healthy lifestyle, but I mean, 21, 22 with like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
What the fuck else do you expect me to do with that besides party all the time?
Yeah.
I was involved in an industry that's literally what you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Live fast, die young.
Yeah. And I was certainly living fast, you know? And so life got real quick.
So then once you kind of lost everything, right? Because as we've established, your sobriety date is 5 years ago, and you're not 28. So clearly there was a period, right, after that. Because I think it would be easy to assume that going from making hundreds of thousands of dollars to living on the street in a tent would be a rock bottom.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
One would think. You know, I tried to get sober in 2017 just to keep my family off my back. You know, they knew that I was struggling. Mm-hmm. You know, at this time in my life, I was smoking meth. I was shooting it up. I was never home. My parents were done with me. You know, I'd been to jail so many times. Classic addict story, you know? And so I had had enough of like running to my family for help. And they were like, why don't you just get help? And I was like, or just stop, mm-hmm. you know, that $1 million question. Why don't you just stop? And it's like, it's not that easy, you know? And so I checked myself into a men's Christian discipleship program in East Texas.
Okay. Bold.
Bold. Very bold. It was very uncomfortable. But I did it to make them happy. Because I thought if I make them happy, then my life will be normal again. I lasted 67 days, which was like living in hell on earth. It was awful. It was awful. And on day 67, I went right back out to the streets because I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And I stayed out from that time until 2020.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious how your queerness kind of played into all of this, right? Because you went to a Christian rehab.
A men's
Christian rehab. Mm-hmm. And here we are today. So, yeah, I'm curious how your queerness, your transgenderness, like any of that kind of like fueled the addiction or the lifestyle or what, right? How does it come into play?
Okay, so right after high school, the person that I met was a trans woman, and I didn't even know that that was a thing.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And so I transitioned at 18. And then in the film industry, I was a trans woman. Mm-hmm. But then when crystal meth came into the picture, I was not worried about how I looked. And so I transitioned back to a man. And that's how I lived until 2020.
Yeah.
I still felt like a trans woman. I still felt like my old self. But that's not how I appeared, you know? And then so when I decided to get sober in 2020 for myself, that's when I was like, okay, once I can kick this alcohol, you know, problem, I can take my life back.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
You know, and I made sure I had, you know, like 8 months. Yeah, it was like 8 months of sobriety under my belt before I was like, hey, I want to transition. Yeah. You know, my sponsor at the time was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, and I had moved to San Antonio. I got away from everything
People,
that I was accustomed to. Yeah, all the things. You know, and so it just started here. Yeah. You know?
So then what was the moment or series of moments that led up to that day in 2020 where you were finally like, I'm done. I need help. Things need to change?
God, I don't talk about this often, but I was staying at my dad's house, and I had been on like a 10-day drinking binge. I was drinking like so much whiskey. It was the middle of COVID, the beginning of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I have a little brother. But I got so intoxicated that I hit him. Mm. And my dad was like, you're done. Like, get the fuck out. Like, don't care where you go, but you're done. You got to get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. And that was my rock bottom, you know, because my little brother's a lot younger than I am. He's 16 years younger than me. Mm. And so for me to just be in such like a dark place that I would go to that length, you know, like just taking out anger and frustration and like just taking it out on the wrong person, you know? And so that was an eye opener for me. And it was like, dude, get your fucking life together.
Yeah.
Because this is not going to be well for you.
Yeah. Especially for, you know, to lash out at someone that's
so young.
Yeah.
And it was not their fault.
How old was he at the time?
I was 30, so he was 14.
14. Yeah.
14. And I didn't hit him like where I hurt him, but details don't matter.
Yeah.
It's just the act of, and I'm not proud of that. You know, there's still a level of shame that comes up around that. And I've done a lot of work around that part of my life. But we've not spoken since.
Yeah. There's some things that, you know, are really hard to take back.
Yeah.
If at all.
Yeah.
So when you get kicked out of your house, what happens then, you know?
I reached out to my aunt, and she was like, well, you're not staying here, but you know, you can stay in the barn. You can put a tent up, and you can stay there. And I went to jail that night. I hit him. I went to jail because I walked my happy ass to a fire department, and I had a knife in my purse or my bag at the time. And when they opened the door, I had the knife pulled. Mm. And so I got arrested. Duh.
Right.
Duh. And that was on May 1st of 2020. When I woke up in jail on May 2nd, I was like, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You have a problem. And that was the first time I had ever admitted, like, I have a serious problem.
Yeah.
And so my aunt was like, you can stay here, you know, but you're not staying in the house, you know, like, and I just, you know, once I was able to admit to myself I had a problem, I had to find somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And change.
I'm wondering, do you think you know, knocking on the fire department with a knife pulled, was that intentional, even subconsciously? I
think I was in so much pain, like emotional pain, that I was just crying out for help. Mm-hmm. And, you know, anybody that has trauma, childhood trauma, like if you're not loved, you know, you start acting in ways that it's very like see me energy, you know? And I think that was my cry for help. It's like, I just wanted someone to see me and love me, you know? Cause I lost my partner, you know, in January of 2020 to a heroin overdose. And so I was coping for 5 months, and then the world was shut down, and it's like, and my family's not accepting, and like, I couldn't talk to them about it. And it was just hell.
Yeah.
Hell, you know? And so that was a cry for help.
Yeah, for sure. So once you get to your aunt's barn, you know, I think for a lot of people, those kind of like first steps are sometimes the hardest, right? Because we don't know where to go, what to do. You know, for people that use harder drugs, you know, I was a heroin addict. And so like just the idea of withdrawals was what kept me hooked for so long. After I knew I was done with it and I needed to change, but I couldn't deal with the withdrawals, right? And so like I didn't know what to do. Like what were those first steps for you, you know, to get out of it?
You know, there was an officer in the jail, and they had seen me so many times, and like so many times this one officer was like, you should check out like AA or something. Like, we're tired of seeing you in here. And that stuck. You know? And so I found a virtual AA meeting on my phone, and I just started there. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. Had no idea, you know, and I found this program, Serenity Star, and I had already called them, and they were like, you know, quarantine for 2 weeks, get a COVID test, and like check in daily, and then be here on this day. And so in those 2 weeks, I just did virtual AA meetings like 3 times a day, you know, while withdrawing from alcohol in a tent in the summer. And I was willing to do whatever I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was going to die at some point, you know, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to do that again.
Right.
Ever. I don't ever want to do that shit again. It was awful.
Yeah, that was my experience, both with heroin and alcohol, where it's like, I'm going through this once.
Yes. I will never do that shit again.
Yeah. Because it was horrendous.
It was awful.
What for lack of a better phrase, what like steeled, you know, reinforced your will? Because sometimes, you know, we're willing, but we're also weak.
So the aunt that I was staying with, she's an absolute bitch. And I was determined to get the fuck out of there.
Okay.
I was determined to get the fuck out of there. And my dad wasn't answering the phone, and my grandma wasn't answering the phone, and nobody was answering the phone. And I was like, I'll be damned if I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
You know? And I was determined.
Yeah.
And we as addicts, like, if we put our mind to something, we're going to do it.
Yeah. It sounds like that was definitely a moment of clarity where
Yeah.
like, I know exactly where I need to go.
I don't know where
exactly
I'm going,
how
but
to
I need to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about that place, Serenity Star.
Serenity Star Recovery.
Okay. Wait, before we get there, sorry, I had a lingering question because you've said Houston, but you've also mentioned a barn and like the police station, like they knew you. Like this is giving small town vibes.
Okay, so I am from the Woodlands, which is North Houston.
Okay.
My grandpa was in law enforcement. My family's been there since like early 1900s, and I have a huge family. So
Gotcha.
it is kind of small town, but not.
Yeah.
So
I get, okay.
everybody kind of knows your business when you have a big family.
Yes. And especially in those kind of, let's call it suburbs. you know.
Especially when you're in and out of jail
Uh-huh.
and acting crazy.
Okay.
So
It all makes sense now.
yes.
So, okay. Talk to me about Serenity Star then. Was that in Houston or the Woodlands or where was it?
So Serenity Star Recovery is in this, talk about small town. It's in Smithville, Texas.
Okay.
Which is where Hope Floats was filmed.
Okay.
It's like 2 hours from here, south of Austin. And I found it through a friend that I had met in the Christian place, this woman. And she was like, I know of this restaurant in Smithville, and they help people recover from addiction and substance abuse. You know, they don't require health insurance. You know, maybe you should check them out. So I called.
Wait, this restaurant?
Yes.
Okay.
This restaurant is local, and it's Comfort Cafe.
Oh.
And so it's that program.
Yeah.
And so thank God someone answered the phone, because they have saved my life.
Yeah.
And I've been with Serenity Star since 2020.
So then I take it is it an inpatient rehab or
So
it sounds like it's not?
It's a residential recovery community. It's a 6 month to 1 year commitment.
Oh, okay.
It's peer-to-peer based. It's different for every person that comes in. Some people come in and get it in 3 months. Some people a little longer.
Yeah.
It's not to say that I haven't gotten it because I have 5 years.
Yeah.
But I have found my home and I have found my tribe, you know, and I've grown up. I've become a pretty badass woman in recovery.
Yeah.
So,
So you say you've been with them for 5 years. Do you still live on the complex or the?
So I'm now one of the house managers in one of the houses here in San Antonio. And so I'm also a board member.
Awesome.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was never like on my radar.
I
didn't
on
know
your
that
bingo
this.
card?
Yeah, no, not at all. I didn't know that this was going to be my purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't know what my purpose was in life. Had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, starting so young,
I had no idea. I thought at 20, I thought my purpose was I'm going to just be a sex worker my whole life. And then God said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So
That's amazing. So you said that the program is peer-to-peer. What does that mean?
So Terry and Rosie are the founders. They're both in recovery. Together they have like almost 40 years of recovery. So they're the founders. All the staff members are people who have come to the program. Each of us have like multiple years. And that's our mission, is to help the next addict.
Yeah.
And so they're not like counselors or doctors or therapists. Like, it's addicts helping addicts.
Yeah.
And so it's so relatable. There's nothing that nobody in the program hasn't ever said or done that the next person hasn't experienced.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's great.
Yeah. It sounds like really very unique. And I think, as is the core tenet of a lot of recovery programs where it's addicts helping addicts, because like, who else knows what we've been through?
Yeah.
But somebody else that's been through it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. How long were you there?
So I was in Smithville for about 4.5, 5 months. And then I moved to San Antonio, and I moved into, our Rainbow House, which is like an LGBTQ house. And I'm still at Rainbow House.
You're like, done.
The only difference
Home.
is now I'm house mom.
Yeah.
And it's great, and I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
How is that? Because I guess at the time you were what, like 29, 30? 30? Okay.
30.
How does that kind of like evolution to a kind of house mom status,
It's so weird. I say weird, and it's all God, you know. It's wild how it happened, because when I had like 6 months, I was like, maybe I'll leave in 6 months, like I was only going to give it 6 months because that was the minimum that they had asked for. And it's a 6 month to 1 year program. And I was like, I'm going to do the minimum.
Yeah.
I'll be fixed. But then like after 6 months, I was like, I'll give it another 6 months. Life is pretty good. And then I hit 1 year and I was like, I'll give it another 6 months. And then I lost track of how many more 6 months I was going to give it.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to a couple months ago, I hit 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I stopped counting.
Yeah.
I stopped counting.
It sounds like you were having moments of clarity at the
so many.
So
So
at
many.
that 6 month mark, what was that moment of like, I think I'm going to stay, right?
Yeah. I had enough evidence to see where like, damn, I'm doing this and I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
And I'm surrounded by people that are supportive and understand me, and I feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in my life I'd ever felt safe.
It goes such a long way. Right?
Yeah.
Especially for queer and trans people.
Yeah.
Where we're like,
And then when I came out to the program, and I'm sure they already knew, but when I said that I want to transition, and they were like, okay, let's get you to the doctor. And I was like, these are my people.
yeah.
These are my people.
Yeah.
And I've grown up in this program.
And I think that's so important, in recovery, to like find your community, right?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about how you can't do this alone.
Fuck no.
And oftentimes that's the struggle, is finding the right community, right? I've heard of people coming in and out and just not really finding, whether it's the meeting or the rehab or whatever, right? Like not finding the place where you feel safe, comfortable, capable of going through this journey. So it really does sound like God put you exactly where you needed to be.
Exactly where I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what does recovery look like now, and how do you keep going?
Recovery now looks like helping the next person. Whether it's the people in my house or the people in the program or the people that come into the restaurant, it's simply getting out of my own way.
Yeah.
Every single day. Don't get me wrong. There are days where I like to get in my own way. We started the show like that.
Exactly.
But for the most part, I get out of my own way and I'm helping the next person. Mm-hmm. And that's literally what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And it's a gift.
It really is. It's funny. Yesterday at the meeting that I was at, the topic was around selfishness and self-centeredness, right? And I had this moment, speaking of moments of clarity, where in part of my share, I was talking about how, like, the people that developed this program really were geniuses in the way that they found what is sometimes our most debilitating quality, right? Our selfishness and our self-centeredness, and weaved it into the program in a way that it manifests as good, right? Because, like, selfishly, I want to stay sober. And in order to do that, I have to help the next alcoholic.
Yeah. It's the method to the madness.
Yeah. So
Who would have thought?
Right. So what does the life of a house mom look like? Or, for anyone that's listening that maybe isn't familiar with the idea of, like, a sober living home or things like that, like, what does all that entail?
It's simply just holding space for the next person. The people that are in my house currently, most of them have at least a year.
Yeah.
Let's see. Most of them have about 2 years. And so they have tools, they have stability, sustainable, but it's just being the person that's there to listen and share my experience, strength, and hope. It's just being a friend, and someone that is understanding and compassionate, and they are the same for me.
Yeah.
I get just as much from them as I can offer them, and that's it. It's such a strong bond.
Yeah. Where did you learn that compassion, because it doesn't often come naturally to addicts, right?
No.
So who taught you that?
The people that have walked before me in Serenity Star, because I had no compassion when I got here. I was so, oh my God, I was such a bitch, such a bitch. I had no compassion for anybody, not even myself, but once I started to have compassion for myself, and over time, it's just developed into what it is today, and it continues to grow, I
think it really lends itself to that saying in some recovery rooms of stick with the winners, right? If you start hanging out with the right people, right, and getting involved, it tends to rub off, right?
Well, that became my mantra for a little bit early on, was because I was an asshole early on, like in recovery, and I finally just got to the point, well, fuck, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. They have what I want, they're living beautiful lives and they're happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I get that? And so if you can't beat them, might as well join them.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything. So it was just about, like, I have to remain teachable.
Okay.
I have to be open. My heart has to be open. Like, I can let the walls down. Like, I don't have anything to prove to anybody. I can be a mess. I can be raw. Yeah, it took a minute. Yeah. I didn't share in a meeting for 91 days. Which is crazy, because I like to talk.
Yeah.
But I did not want anybody to see what was behind this imaginary wall that I had built up.
Right. And that idea of remaining teachable, like, that takes a lot of humility.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think the same kind of question of, like, well, maybe not even necessarily, like, who taught you that, but, like, what were the circumstances necessary to be able to get humble and be vulnerable, right? Like, if someone's listening and being like, well, I don't have that space around me, like, what was that space, for you that made you feel comfortable enough to finally, allow that?
I just had to really, I had to stop white knuckling it. People white knuckle it a lot, and there's nothing wrong with that. There have been moments in my journey where I have just held on so tight, But early on, I had to just like let go of the chair I was holding on to and just open my hands, like physically open my hands. And in the meetings and the classes, and like I just had to sit there with like my hands open in my lap, and like just soak it all in.
Yeah.
Because the people that walked before me, they were saying the same shit I was thinking, and it was like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. It's funny, right? How sometimes if you let your body do it first, your mind and your heart tend to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I became a sponge.
And I think that's key, especially early in sobriety, if in terms of like, you have to absorb what's being fed to you around you, right? And again, in order to do that, you kind of have to humble yourself,
Yeah. And, and that's like where the selfishness comes in, because I feel like I've met people in my journey where like, sure, they have time, but there are necessarily things in their program that I don't want, and it's like, I have to be selfish and protect my program and my recovery. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I don't want to do that, but there's the next person may have a quality or an attribute about themselves that I admire. And it's like, I'm going to embody that for myself.
Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
And so so you have the Serenity Star, you have the Rainbow House, Rainbow Home, Rainbow House.
Rainbow House.
Rainbow House. Outside of those, what else goes into your practice of, staying sober, right? What are the other elements of your sobriety? So,
service is a huge part. And if you live in San Antonio and you've heard of Comfort Cafe, then you know that we are huge on service. Mm-hmm. And so I dedicate 3 days a weekend to that. And that for me is like recovering out loud, I get to show people that come in, what a recovering alcoholic looks like.
Yeah.
And then I do things like this, where I sit and have vulnerable conversations with strangers. Yeah. And I share my story for other strangers to hear, because I know someone out there somewhere is going to relate in one way or another.
Yeah.
And I want to be the person that I needed early on. And, I've done so many podcasts and I've done magazine interviews, and I'm going to New York in September. And, it's just being open and an open book.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and being very open and vulnerable about it. Because someone somewhere needs to hear this.
Yeah.
And it often feels like nobody in the world could possibly be going through what I'm going through. Nobody could possibly understand how I feel. And, the more we put our stories out there, the more people can potentially feel seen, right? And feel like there is hope.
Yeah. I mean, most of the trans women, or mostly trans women that I know in my life, are not in recovery, and so when I decided to transition, I was like, oh, there's not many trans women in recovery. Mm-hmm. There are, but I don't feel like the ones that I have met are as vocal about it. There's a couple, but I know that other trans people struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what my walk was like, and I just know it's relatable, and I want to be that safe woman for other people like me.
Yeah. Because, as queer people, as trans people, there's already so much doubt. There's already so much external shame and all of that, surrounds our very existence.
Every single day.
Yeah. More and more these days.
Yeah.
And to have to put addiction on top of that, right, can feel so heavy.
Yeah. The shame alone is so heavy.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you put that down?
It's a hard one. Some of us are also recovering Catholics.
I get it. I grew up in a Christian home. I get it.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to go to hell my whole life until I just realized I wasn't.
Yeah.
So
Well, again, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Are you ready to get into some rapid fire?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, fill in the blank. Recovery has given me.
Life.
What's one word you'd use to describe your recovery journey?
Purposeful.
What's a daily habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Praying.
If you find yourself struggling or triggered, what's the first thing you do?
Talk to my sponsor.
This or that, morning routine or night routine?
Oh, shit. That night routine.
Meditation or movement?
Meditation.
Talking it out or writing it down?
Oh, both.
Yeah.
I love both of them.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Name one book, song, movie, or television show that has been meaningful to your recovery.
Oh, shit. What is that movie with Lady Gaga and...
A Star is Born?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that makes total sense.
That one.
Yeah. God, I cried so much.
I cry every time.
A piece of advice you return to when things get tough.
Be still.
A phrase or mantra that keeps you going.
Just breathe.
And if someone hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
Peace.
You can find it?
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here
Of course.
and sharing your story and your clarity, your serenity and peace.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode of The Speaker Meeting, breaking the silence one story at a time. A huge thank you to our guests today for sharing their journey with us. Recovery isn't easy, but conversations like this remind us that we're not alone and that change is possible. If you're struggling, know that there is help and there is hope. You don't have to do this alone. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. And if you'd like to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. You can submit your information at geminisproductions.com/thespeakermeeting. And if this conversation meant something to you, help us spread the word. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. The more we talk about recovery, the more we remind people that they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, recovery is real.